So here's an example of why we need a men's rights movement. This is the EU's gender equality strategy. They was just released recently, and basically it's the official strategy of the European Union's commitment to gender equality. But they only mention gender equality for women, and they only mention women's issues. Now, don't get me wrong. I completely agree that these women's issues are valid and do need to be addressed. And that's a misunderstanding that a lot of people have about MRAs and the men's rights movement. We don't deny that women's issues exist, and we completely agree that they need to be addressed. And we're not against the idea of a feminist movement. It's just certain specific objections we have to certain specific things that happen, which I've talked about in this channel in previous videos. But you can't achieve equality by only paying attention to one side. And men and boys face significant gaps and discriminations in Europe too. And if you ignore them, you're not really achieving equality. Some of the issues I've talked about in this channel before, and there are many. Many European countries have conscription, where men are forced into the military against their will. Many European countries have higher pension ages for men, where men are forced to work until they're older, even though they die younger. The education gap and the employment gap. Young men are less likely to be employed. Boys are doing worse in school and less likely to go to college. Men are more likely to be homeless. And in every European country, the male life expectancy is lower than women's life expectancy, and men die younger. So all of those gaps are pretty significant, and if you ignore them, you're not really achieving equality. But this is the official strategy from the EU, which holds itself to be very progressive and very equally minded. And these men's issues are not mentioned at all. This is an example of why we need a men's rights movement and why feminism is not enough to fix men's issues, because feminists don't even acknowledge many men's issues. So if you're not going to acknowledge an issue, how are you going to fix it? And if you're not going to acknowledge multiple issues, how are you going to achieve equality?